My Husband, My Enemy, Episode 2.
Scott, you're my only man in my past 27 years. You're also the only man that I've been sleeping with. Can we do another paternity test?
Ashley took a few deep breaths and slowly calmed down. If it turns out that you're really not the child's father, I'm willing to get a divorce. Ashley's decisive tone caught Scott off guard. Even his heart missed a beat. He pressed his lips together. Just when he was about to speak, a sweet and soft voice was heard from behind him.
Scott, are you here to see me? I've just seen the doctor. He said I need to take good care of my health for a few months after you divorce Ashley. We will soon have our own baby.
Upon hearing this, Ashley's sadness and anger were replaced with shock. Her gaze fell on the beautiful woman who was slowly walking toward Scott. The woman was Rose Fisher. Dorothy was able to recognize her at a glance. 26 years ago, Ashley's father, Caleb Fisher, and her mother, Linda Arnold, failed to conceive even after marrying for a long time. Having no choice, they had adopted Ashley from an orphanage. When Ashley was 4 years old, Linda was miraculously pregnant. She then gave birth to a daughter, Rose. Ever since Rose was born, Caleb and Linda had been paying less attention to Ashley. What's worse, on Ashley's and Scott's wedding day, Rose was the one who was standing next to Credence all day, wearing a sweet smile on her face. Rose was wearing a gorgeous dress. Besides, her makeup looked delicate. A sweet aroma tickled Ashley's nose as she walked over. Upon seeing Rose, Scott's tense face softened a little, but when he turned to face Ashley, his expression became indifferent again. You know very well that you've never been the woman I love, so it's time for you to give way to others. Scott's tone was like a bullet shooting through Ashley. She was fully aware that he hated her to the core, but she still clung to the hope that things would be different once they had a child. Biting her pale lips, Ashley tried hard to fight back her tears. She watched helplessly as Rose. Ashley felt as if her heart had sunk into a bottomless pit. She stared at her sister, who was in name only. The first thought that came to her mind was, Scott was going to abandon her once Rose was ready to conceive his child. At the thought of that, all color drained from her face. The despair she was feeling was beyond words. Rose did not even bother to hide the ridicule on her face. Seeing that, Ashley could not hold back her anger anymore. She rushed toward Rose and yelled at her, "You've crossed the line, Rose. Are you that shameless to hook up with your brother-in-law? Even if you don't care about me, have you not considered the reputation of the Fisher and the Scott family?" Pointing at Rose furiously, Ashley seemed to have gone all out. "Scott, do you think that the woman in your arms is an innocent little bunny that needs your protection? Don't be silly. Do you know why your father had suddenly fallen off the balcony from the 3rd floor and became vegetative? 2 years ago, Scott had witnessed his father, Sheldon Scott, fallen down from the balcony. Unfortunately, the incident caused him to be in a vegetative state. At the mention of this sad event of the past, anger stirred within Scott. His face darkened. All of a sudden, he grasped Ashley's chin, roaring at her, "If you did not suck up to my father back then, Rose would be the one who married me, not you." Then, a smile appeared on Scott's face. His smile looked eerie as he said,
"That night, you pretended to be Rose. Also, you persuaded Dad to drug me. Otherwise, how would I be sleeping on the same bed with you? And why did he so coincidentally block us at the door, if it weren't for him threatening me with his life? Do you think I would marry you?"
Ashley had loved Scott for 10 years, while he had hated her for 10 years. Furthermore, his hatred toward her grew with each passing day. He would never believe that Ashley had not used some tricks in order to marry him back then. Little did Ashley expect that she was just an ugly, scheming woman to Scott. Although her heart was filled with bitterness, she straightened. Ugly, scheming woman to Scott. Although each heart was filled with bitterness, she straightened her back, enduring the stabbing pain on her jaw. She smiled defiantly. "Fine, say whatever you want, but I will never divorce you. As long as I remain as Mrs. Scott, my dear sister would only be regarded as a despicable mistress. Scott, I wouldn't allow you to marry her, unless I die." "Sis, Scott does not love you at all. Why are you so persistent?" Rose bit her lip and shouted as if she had been wronged. Her face was ashen, as though she was the one with her chin grasped. She looked at Ashley with tears in her eyes. "I don't know anything about Scott's father's accident. I wasn't even at the scene at that time. How could you frame me like that? You knew that Scott and I were in love with each other, and yet you schemed against me to take him away from him. When Sheldon found out that you've used him and wanted to tell Scott the truth, you ruthlessly pushed him off the balcony. This time, you even have the child of another man. How could you treat Scott like this? Rose paused. Her face was wet with tears. Sis, I love Scott, and he loves me too. This time, I will not give him to you again. You even have the child of another man. How could you treat Scott like this? Rose paused. Her face was wet with tears. Sis, I love Scott, and he loves me too. This time, I will not give him to you again.